Alright, you guys, welcome back to Little Man Big Conversations. Today is a special episode because I get to interview a guy I have known for, I want to say, pretty much for 12 years, but we've only started working together in the last couple of years. This man is a fellow pioneer in the Queensland wrestling scene. He started his own promotion, one of the first in Tasmania. He's had 3 incarnations of his character, and today I am proud to actually be sitting alongside my fellow tag team champion and the main instigator, originator, and creator of the El Cartel stable that I'm proud to be a part of. Ladies and gentlemen, it brings me great pleasure to welcome to the table today Diablo. How are you, man?
I'm good, Flash. I'm really good. Finally out of isolation and loving life.
Oh man, it's surreal to have everything that's going on because you and I were in a situation where we would just become tag champs of a federation. We were just getting the ball rolling. We had done such an awesome creative moment where you and I got to finally work together as a team. And then the world shuts down. So, yeah, it is nice to finally see you again, man.
It says a lot about our wrestling, doesn't it? It's like, hey, we become tag champs and the world turns to shit. So, yeah, it says a lot, doesn't it, really?
What have we done? Now, do you prefer I call you Diablo? Do you prefer if I call you... Some people might know you as Jethro.
Look, I've been called a lot of things in my time, mate. But yeah, like, I suppose everyone has just known me as Jethro. Yeah. It's been, almost 20 years of running around in tights and wrestling men. So, and I also do pro wrestling as well. Jethro's fine, mate.
Okay, cool. Do you want your real name too, or are you happy to do the work names?
No, don't tell anyone.
Okay. All right, so I'm here with Elizabeth. No. All right, man. Well, like I said at the top of this podcast, I've known of you since, pretty much when I started, because I started down in a federation called IPW. Before then, they were known as Major Impact. Before then, they were known as WCW.
Australia.
Yes, WCW Australia. And when I had signed up, there was a lot of memorabilia and flyers and newspaper articles and old photos and things like that and championships and people that were there and people that weren't there. And I'd always seen this name popped up called Jethro. And it wasn't until I think maybe I started in 2008. So I want to say maybe a year later, maybe 1 or 2 shows there where one show you were in the crowd and I was told that you were there, and I was not kidding. I was shit nervous to come and say something. And I think a couple of months later, if not the next month, you had come and done a show. But I don't think we ever really spoke until, I think the first memory I have of speaking to you was maybe...
The time I wanted to kill you for using the wrong music, thanks to Ash, you piece of shit. Probably that time. Yeah,
so that story came about because, it was the show that you came and did in 2009, I want to say.
Mm-hmm, something like that.
And... I was helping to run sound that show, and I was sitting up at the desk, and I remember the locker room was just down, the sound was upstairs, the locker room was downstairs, you could sort of look down into it, and I remember you standing behind the curtain, and Ash had come up before the show, and he said, hey, have you got music for Jethro? And I said, yeah, he's given me his music already. And Ash goes, no, it's the wrong one. And I went...
Yeah, because the wrestler who brings you his music would definitely be wrong, and Ash would definitely have the right music. I can see how he got away with this. And
I went, oh, okay, well... And he goes, no, he wants to change it, and I've got the song on my USB. And I went, okay. And he goes, yeah, here it is. And I went, Cotton Eye Joe? And I remember playing, yes, that song. When happened? And I remember playing that song, and I swear that memory is burnt into my brain. The look you gave me, and I remember you mouthing the words, motherfucker. And you went out there furious.
Think they were the only words I mouthed at you. But I think I just remember looking up and looking at you going, who is this little shit who's done this to me? And then I think I looked over at Ash and he was laughing, and I just thought, oh my God, he's got me again. Yeah.
But I remember having lots of conversation with you in the crowd with the IPW shows.
Mm-hmm.
I think BJ Blade was also there. We had conversations and
I think
talking.
he was my driver at the time.
Yeah, and we had spoken about working together, and then an opportunity came up to work together in Venom, and we did the El Cartel and we did the Angle, and we had this three matches together. And I gotta say, man, there was this time in my wrestling where I wanted to at least work with, in some way, shape, or form, all the guys that had helped pave the way for wrestling up here in Queensland, whether it be Ash, whether it be Benny, whether it be Scorn, whether it be yourself. I wanted to, in least some way, shape, or form, all the guys that I had been exposed to when I started, when I given the video library in 2009, 2010, all the old tapes from the early 2000s, all the merchandise, all the flyers that I had seen. I thought, man, it'd be so cool to work with these guys that arguably helped create what I had joined 8 years later, because I felt like that was almost sort of stepping back in time and learning from people that had gone through a time and a period up here where it was like, there's nothing to look back on. There is no history up here. We are creating the history. And to know that you also felt the same, you went, Ben speaks high of you. There's a lot of guys here that have worked with you, and, when are we going to do it? When are we going to do it? And we did manage to do it. We got a 3-peat out of it. We joined up. We won tag titles not thereafter. And man, it's been such an awesome ride thus far. But that was my perspective on it. I know you're gonna either swear at me or make a joke.
Tear you to shreds in a minute.
But am I right in what was I saying? Like, you wanted to also do some work together?
Yeah, look, the first time I think I ever saw you wrestle is you wrestled as The Undertaker.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
And I just remember being in the crowd, and I think I was visiting, and BJ had come and had said, hey, let's go check out an IPW show, just because he was out with an injury at the time. And we came, and then because I've been gone so long, I hadn't seen a lot of the new generation. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I heard Undertaker's music hit, and I just looked at BJ and I was like, wow, things have really improved around here since we've been gone. and then you came out doing the slow walk, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, what is that? What is what's going on here? Yeah. And I just remember, I can't remember who you wrestled, and you tombstoned them. Which I thought, because they were actually bigger than you. Mm-hmm. No offense, Flashman, everyone's bigger than you. Yeah, but, I know. And you tombstoned him, and I was actually like, I remember looking at Ben and just saying, like, oh my God, like, he actually did that safe. And because look, I do a tombstone as well, and I know, and as you would have found out a few times, and it's a very dangerous move. Like, it's it only takes a drop of sweat, or you lose your grip, or you haven't squeezed their head enough, and you're talking about paralyzing somebody. And I remember watching you do it, thinking, wow, that was so impressive, and it was so entertaining. And this is long before I actually knew that you were this entertaining Flashman. Yeah. So that was the first time I think I ever saw you wrestle, and I remember giving you props to BJ and saying, like, wow, he's pretty cool, like, that's pretty funny. And then I think when I came to Venom, I like another, sitting in the crowd story. I think you came out to Madonna's "Like a Prayer." Is that what you do? Yes. And yes. Yeah, you came out to that, and I just like, your music hit, and it was like the crowd just got up on their feet and started clapping and all that sort of shit that a lovely audience does. Yep. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, it's the Undertaker kid. Like, and this is the real, like, Flash. So, and I just remember seeing both those shows and thinking, like, wow, like, for a guy your size, you understand entertainment, and that's the most important thing in this industry. Yeah, but that's strange. I never knew you were at that show, because if it's the show I'm thinking of, not the Venom one, because I remember that. I remember seeing Benny afterwards and seeing your face and in the crowd, and I remember looking at you and doing like a little in-character wave, and you were just sitting there with your arms crossed going, you fucking idiot. Like, you were enjoying it, but you were saying it with love, like, this is awesome, but just... I was probably saying, who the fuck is this kid? That's probably what I was saying. But... And, but yeah, that show I think you're thinking of
The only time I've done a tombstone, I did this segment.
Why do I think it's Bronson Hoyt?
It's not. It was it a guy in rainbow colored gear?
Maybe.
Because it was 2008.
I remember, I don't know.
It was 2008, and I versed a guy called Spider Sam, and I'd come out, and it was this...
Is he a relation to Slam and Sam?
No. I did a thing where at that point I hadn't really developed a character, but I could do impressions, and it was my third ever match, and it was like October, so it was Halloween-esque kind of timeline. And
that sounds right.
And I did the tombstone and did it safe and did it properly. And I think it was one of the only ever times that I managed to do it. And yeah, I felt really confident about it. I think it even got filmed on like Bruce 31's Slam Nation. And yeah, ever since then, it was like a thing that every October I would have to do Taker. But that was the first time I attempted and tried it. And I mean, looking back on photos of it now, I go, oh man, denim jeans and white boots, and I'm trying to get away with doing Taker. I had no idea you were at that show though, man.
So on to my next question, since we've swapped roles here.
That's nuts. But yeah, we got to work together, and it was such a strange sequence of events that turned out to work for the better, because I think both you and I went, okay, we'll do one and see what happens. And we did the first one.
And then you suckered me into two more? Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it. But I think we both agreed that it worked really well. We had a lot of fun. And I think we tried to creatively go, could we do another one out of it? And when we came up with the idea of, because I think the first one you'd hit me with a chair, and that technically meant that I won, but there was room for, okay, well, let's see what would happen now if we win a second time.
I think the hardest thing is when you look to be honest, I wanted to work with you because I knew you were from the IPW, genre of guys who I hadn't had a chance to work with.
Yep.
And then also the thing is I'd never worked with someone your size.
Right. Same.
The smallest guy I'd ever worked with was BJ.
Right.
And I thought he was short. And, so like when you spoke to me about, us working together, I was like, it's a real challenge.
Sure.
Like everyone, like Hawk used to put me against back in the old days was always, probably at least 6 foot, like I said. And that's easy to work with when someone's your size or taller, or because you can maneuver around them a lot easier. When you work with someone small, you've got to understand, well, hey, I need to keep my character with some integrity of working with someone small and still putting them over.
Yep.
But I also don't want to look like I'm just destroying them because I'm 2 foot taller than them.
Sure.
And it's kind of, and that was the challenge. And that's what I liked about working with you is there was that opportunity to come out of my comfort zone and go, well, hey, I need to make this look good, but I also need to make it look believable and not look, silly in the process. Mm-hmm. And then somehow you managed me to do it 2 more times.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome. So we got the 3-peat, the third one, had a lot of fun. And then we came up with the idea, well, okay, it's sort of that mentality of my character was like, yeah, this guy didn't want to essentially kick my ass in the sense of trying to destroy me, but my character's perception on that was, well, he's motivated me to do better. And then that's when the swerve happened where I turned on so that there was like a 5-on-5 tag, and I turned on one of the partners, and you're in the ring as well on the opposite side, and it's like, oh, can they do a fourth? Here we go. And we did the swerve, helped you win. Everyone, I think I told you, but I got inbox a couple of days later from a random fan that was burning my Flashman guy shirt in a bin because they were so unhappy that I turned and joined you. And
so practically what you're telling me is they burnt $25 in a bin?
Yeah.
How sad. And where's that $25?
In my wallet.
Your pocket. So how sad for that guy.
Yeah, but it was fun because we knew that we thought it would possibly work, but when I got footage of that, it was like, okay, this is going to be something fun.
I think the best thing is in wrestling is it's so hard these days to fool, trick, manipulate the audience, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Because they've seen everything.
Sure, yeah. They have.
You know, like wrestling's been around for decades. Like, you know, even today's WWE, all they do is recycle the 7-year storyline, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And just put a new spin on it. Like, so it's really hard. And I don't think, and I honestly believe that I don't think the crowd saw that coming.
No, they didn't.
They didn't. And, because you were so over as a face and I was just this prick of a heel that they just didn't think, there was kind of no reason like to them as why you would turn at that time.
No, there was no hint or inkling.
No. And so like when it happened, it was like, oh my God. And I think, the timing couldn't been better for you because also too, like, I know as well, like playing a face for a really long time that it becomes stale and it became like you get to a point where it's like whether you win or lose, it's just night in the same thing over and over again. And you just, I remember the opportunity for me to turn heel was amazing as Jethro because I couldn't wait because I'd been a face for so long. All I had to do was come out and stomp my feet and clap my hands and the crowd were, I had the crowd instantly. And I loved the fact that it was like, right, now here's the opportunity to, you can't do that anymore. Everything that you've learned from day one as a face and from your wrestling career is to make the crowd like you. Now you got to make the crowd hate you.
Yeah.
And that's harder. I think being a heel is a lot harder than being a face these days. And a lot of people, and the hardest thing as well is people don't understand how to be a heel without giving someone the finger, spitting on them, calling them names. Like you can actually be a heel without having to do those three things.
I think it's also on the mentality now with heels is that they're almost beloved in the same way as a face. Like some people just absolutely just love bad guys. And no matter what you do as a bad guy, it's very much like a la Steve Austin thing. Like you could beat up the most over face and there'll still be arguably half the crowd they'll think it's great. And that's either because they're over seeing that good guy or they just love bad dudes doing bad things.
I think the hardest thing for me these days is this is my personal opinion on pro wrestling. I believe that being a face and being a heel is dead to me. That's my personal opinion.
Right.
Like I find that in the 80s and in the early 90s, you had your good guys and you had your bad guys. And the good guys fought the bad guys and 90% of the time the good guys won. And the other 10%, like the bad guys won. And that worked for a long time. Now, and, so it's pretty much like, the superhero versus the villain. And the thing is, to me, that time is now over. We don't live in a world of superheroes and villains anymore. And, to me, it's like you're a wrestler and your character has this persona and you do this, and this. Now, and then you have another character, and there's another wrestler over here who has this persona and does this, and this. Now, wrestler A and wrestler B, I may like wrestler A and hate wrestler B.
Yep.
And you might be the other way.
Yep.
You might be, I like wrestler B, but I hate wrestler A.
Sure, yeah.
And it's not so much about heel and facing. It's just you just don't like what that other wrestler does. I had a conversation with someone today about Baron Corbin.
Right.
I can't stand Baron Corbin. And to be honest, I don't really watch that much wrestling anymore, but I just don't like him. I don't like his character. I don't like, what he wears. I don't find his moves exciting. But that doesn't make him a heel. That just makes him someone who I don't want to watch.
Sure.
Where, someone like Bray Wyatt, I look at and I go, I find him entertaining. I find his character entertaining. I find his moves look, he doesn't have the wrestler body that every guys like Triple H and The Rock and Steve Austin and all them look like.
Yeah.
But that's who I kind of like. Now, in the olden terms, it's like, well, Bray Wyatt is a heel because of how they portray him. But I like him. I like watching what he does, So it's like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's
yeah,
like,
I do.
Do we really still live in the world of wrestling where there's good guys and bad guys anymore?
I think there is like a niche market for it, and there are some people that still enjoy that concept of wrestling. But
they're called children.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I do agree that the product is so overexposed now that when any time a documentary or a biography DVD comes out, it just pretty much reveals everything. And that's not necessarily to say it's a bad thing, but it does make it a lot harder for guys that aren't on that echelon or aren't on that level to create that vibe of, no, you have to boo me, no, you have to cheer me. I think for me, I've kind of been uniquely pigeonholed from a frame perspective that a lot of the kids and children and young families and things like that automatically drift to me because by default they look at me and go, oh, he's one of us. Because it's from a frame perspective. They think I'm the same size as them, I look young. Oh, he's literally fighting as a kid. So a lot of kids and young adults are drawn to me because they go, yeah, this is great. But that sort of alienates, teenagers, young adults, and further on. I think it's taken me this amount of time now to go, okay, there's a way to sort of connect with them. It may not be in the whole classic good guy, like high five everyone, wave at the kids, kiss a baby. It's not.
You kiss babies?
Well, you know what I mean. Like it's not. You know what I mean. Not on the mouth, you weirdo. But it's not. It's not done in the default way anymore. I think there is a way to still be represented as obviously a good guy and a bad guy, whether it be through actions that we do in the ring or the promos that set up whatever match is coming each and every month. But I agree, it's not done in the way that we have grown up with it. Not in the whole 80s and 90s, like, Hulk Hogan, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and the Ric Flair, it's cool to be bad, Jim's limousine ride, jet flying, Rolex wearing, steal your girl kind of vibe. That kind of mentality is a lot harder to represent arguably 20, 30 years later. And I understand that, but I think there is still a sort of modernized way to still get that reaction. But I agree, it is a lot harder. And that old way seemingly now is dead. There are still people that will come to shows and want to cheer the hero and will literally boo, and to some extent, depending on what kind of venue it is and how many beverages and liquid courages they've had, swear at the heel. But yeah, the old sort of chemistry and the psychology of, hello, I'm nice, hello, I'm bad, and together we're going to fight. That's dead. But there is still a way to recreate that, but not in the old generic formula that we're accustomed to. Because, kayfabe with social media, I feel like it's not quote-unquote dead, but it is very open-ended. Like, you can see a lot behind the curtain now. But there is still those times where you'll get it all the time. You'll get it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and you'll see all the dirt sheets go, oh, this wrestler responded to this person on Twitter. Looks like they're going to fight next month. They'll still buy into it. Even though 90% of their tweets, 90% of their Instagram photos, 90% of their posts are just them at home doing everyday life things. But the minute another wrestler interacts with another wrestler on social media, how many dirt sheets go, this person commented on this, and oh my God, looks like they've got beef behind the scenes. And it's like, have they?
Emotion sells, mate. That's the problem. People buy into it. That's
the trick these days, is that you have to generate that old familiar feeling, that old vibe of, hang on, looks like this is going to turn into a thing. Hang on, they're not getting along. or that comment was really nasty, or they're a bad guy, and they're just promoting their life. They're the good guy. You're getting that same dynamic, but it's done in a very modernized way. But that's what it is like now. And for a guy of your caliber, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I was exposed to what you had done way before I started, because I joined in 2008, and rewinding 8, arguably 9 years time earlier, we're talking 99, 2000 here. Mm-hmm. You had then just signed up to what was then known as WCW Australia. Were you a fan of the business before you got involved in it, like growing up as a kid, or did it sort of come later on? Like, what was growing up for you like?
No, I was never really a fan of pro wrestling growing up. Like, you hear all these wrestling stories of guys who say, oh, like it's my dream to be WWE champion when I was 5 years old and all that sort of stuff. And it never was for me. Like, I remember seeing WrestleMania 1 because I was a big fan of the A-Team and Mr. T was in it. Like, I actually had no interest in Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper and all them. Like, it was just like, like I'm an 80s kid, and, back then it was the A-Team and Mr. T, and that was their promotional tool at the time, was using that. Mm-hmm. And so that was why I watched it. And I saw it. So I saw it then, and then it was about 98, I think it was. I was in a band at the time.
Okay.
And I used to play drums in some local bands, and we were on tour, and we'd done a show, and wrestling came on late at night, and I got talking with the bass player, and I was like, oh my God, like, check out this, like, and 98 was kind of like the bit of the boom of the wrestling industry, and Steve Austin was like a big part of that. Yeah. And I just remember seeing Austin like stun Vince, and I was like, oh my God, like, check out this, like, the working class man like gets to stun his boss and tell him to F you, and and then smash beers together, and like, it was amazing. And we got chatting about it, and he turned around. He actually knew Cruz,
right? Okay,
from the Gold Coast, and I thought he was just having me on, being that late at night and being under the influence of alcohol. Like, I just thought it was a big rib, and he was like, no, like, he's like, I used to play soccer with Cruz, and I was like, okay. He's like, his dad runs a wrestling company, and I was like, oh, here we go,
yeah,
turn it up, and then. So anyway, like, we got back to the coast a week later, and then we were just sitting around the house, and he's like, what was the WCW Australia at the time? Mm-hmm. And he's like, they've got a show on this weekend at Nerang Basketball Stadium.
Yep.
Which has since been demolished. And he's like, I'll get in contact with Cruz, and we'll get some tickets, we'll go. And I was like, oh, this will be fun. And
was this the Southport Basketball?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Southport Basketball Stadium. And, so we went to the show and met a few of the guys, and Thor, first guy I ever had a conversation with.
Yeah.
And, and also too, like, when I actually, did start wrestling, he was a big part of my training. He actually taught me a lot of things about how to work a crowd and all that sort of stuff. So thanks, Thor, for that. Looks nothing like the Thor from Marvel, that's for sure, but that's a different subject altogether.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we met Cruz, and then I got to meet Hawk, mm-hmm. which was an interesting meeting, as you would know.
How was your meeting with him?
Very loud and very straight to the point. So we got chatting, and, my mate, being the prick that he is, he, threw me under the bus and said, oh, Jethro wants to learn how to wrestle, and thinks it looks easy, and, he can, he reckons he could do it. And like, anyone who knows Hawk, he put on that, that big grunty voice of his, and he's like, "You think you've got what it takes? See you Monday. Come down to the training center." And I was like, "Oh shit!" And part of me just went, "No way, no way." He's just gonna kick the shit out of me for like 2 hours. And so anyway, like you know, he gave me his card with his address, and you know, this was when the sweatshop was in Ashmore.
Right. Okay.
And years, you know, God. And so I just got to Monday morning, and I just thought, you know what have I got to lose?
Yeah, of course.
Went down and trained for a couple of hours with Hawk, and oh my God, just beat the living shit out of me for 2 hours. And then I woke up the next day and felt like I'd been run over by a Mack truck, and then felt like it had reversed over me again because it was that bad. And part of me just thought, oh my God, I never want to do that again. And then that crazy, stupid part that every wrestler has in their brain just went, oh my God, go do that again. That was fun. And, you know, in February it'll be 20 years since I started. And
that's nuts.
Stupid me. I'm still doing it at my age. But
so 20 years ago, what was the company established by the time you'd rock up? They'd done a few shows?
Yeah, like I don't know exactly how long it'd been going.
Do you remember who was there when you went in to train the first time? Like,
when I went to the first training week, I remember like Sweet Ass was there, Ash, Thor, Monk, Harley Seth, Kid Harmony, just all those old school guys that have since obviously, you know, stopped. Oh my God, I've just run a blank with so many names. But yeah, like just most of the guys who have since stopped.
Yeah.
You know, Jackaroo, he was there as well.
Was Saxon there at that point?
No, he came later, and yeah.
So what year was this? Oh, was this 2000? You going to say 2000, 99?
Yeah, I'd say 2000 because I'm pretty sure I did my first show in 2001.
So how long were you training for? So you had the first initial training, and that was, what, on the Monday, roughly? Mm-hmm. Did you literally, was it every day that week?
I did my first show on the Saturday. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Were you, was it everyday training, or was it once a week?
No, it was, so back then he had training Monday, like I went down and did the initial training to see if I wanted to do it. And then they trained Monday, Wednesday, Friday night. Yep. I think it was like 6 till 8 or something like that. And then Saturday, 9 till 12. So pretty much I did my first training Monday morning, and then Wednesday night I went back.
Mm-hmm. And how long were you training for before the conversation came up of getting you on a show? Were you able to pick it up pretty quick, or was there a sort of...
I was terrible.
Oh, really?
I was absolutely shit.
So nothing's changed.
No. I just hide it better. I just hide it better these days.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot... I think what people don't understand is with pro wrestling, there's a lot involved in it. It's not just... Yeah. You know, like I have been a wrestler, I've been a promoter, I've been a trainer. Like the amount of guys who've come to me and their first ever training session, they say, so when do we jump off the top rope?
Yeah.
Like, which irritates me to no end.
Yeah, I hear
But, you know, like there's so much involved in wrestling. Like my first session, I spent just bumping. That's all I did. I think maybe he taught me how to lock up in a headlock.
Okay.
And that was about it.
Who was training you at that point back then?
Hawk.
Hawk was?
Yeah.
Wow.
Hawk was. You know, and I did do some stuff with Cruz, not much, but it was mainly, you know, and then that was kind of my initial, and then I just started in the classes. Mm-hmm. But it was mainly Hawk. One thing about Hawk is he just had the ability to teach you without actually having to get in the ring.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that like just amazed me with him, that he had his little deck, you know, his little director's chair that he used to have, and
yeah.
You know, the thing is with Hawk is if he had to get out of that chair and get in the ring and show you, you just got out of the way because you knew whoever he had to show someone to was going to cop it.
Yeah.
And he just had that ability to do it, and which was amazing. But yeah, like, you know, you got bumping, and then you got, you know, running the ropes, and then you've got working with another person, and then you've got crowd interaction, and then you've got, you know, establishing a character and a moveset, and, you know, are you going to be hated? Are you going to be liked? Like, you know, there's just so much that goes into wrestling where I think a lot of people think that wrestling is just two people doing fake shit in the ring.
Costumes and choreographs.
Yeah, and then jumping off the top rope. And that's far from it.
So for yourself, how long was it then? Your first initial training, you get hooked. Mm-hmm. Feel like you've been run over, but you thought, man, I've got that itch, I've got that bug. Do you remember how long it was before the conversation? Did Hawk approach you after some time and said, hey, we're thinking about putting you on the show?
The worst part of it all was I was not ready, but stupid. Was
that nerves or were you?
No, like looking back now, I will say I was not ready to be on on my first show.
But back then, were you excited?
But back then, I was like every week, because the thing was when I started this, I was like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday morning. Like I was there at like any chance I could. Yeah. And if Hawk had someone who he wanted to train on a Sunday, I'd be the first person to put my hand up and say, hey, I'll come. And so because I did so many hours, I just felt like, well, I'm ready.
Sure.
Because I've done so many hours.
Yeah.
But that is not the case. That is not how wrestling works. And so I just kept begging him to put me on. And then it was one of those things where I think they just had a spot on the card, someone pulled out, or someone couldn't make it, or they just were like, you know, just shut him up and just give him a go. And I just went out there thinking my shit don't stink, and clearly it did because the match stunk. But it was fun though. Like I pretty much just got thrown around.
Yep.
You know, I think I got like maybe a couple of moves in. Mm-hmm. I got to, I think the biggest thing that I did is I did a sit down suplex, like front suplex.
Yep.
And he kicked out. So, which I thought was a pretty cool finisher at the time, but not to that guy. But it was, you know, and you just you walk backstage and you don't expect anyone to give you, you know, like, oh, that was a great match. Like I was just so excited from being out there. And the thing is anyone who's done wrestling and done their first match knows that it's so daunting, because even if you work out your match in your head of how it's going to go, when you actually get out there, I call it a brain fart, like to most guys, and you just go blank and you forget everything you've learned. You've got all these eyes on you, like watching you. You've got all these bright lights. It's really, really scary to be out there. And then, you know, and then also too, you've got to remember you've got someone's body in your hands.
Sure.
That you have to not screw this up.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to injure the guy. So, so I'd say it was I'm probably going to say somewhere between 4 to 6 months I was on my first show, but clearly I could have done a year of training before I got out there.
Did you have a name or anything when you debuted?
It wasn't as good as Peppy, but so Hawk came up with the idea, because I was a drummer in a band. He had this character from the 70s. He knew a guy who was called Wild Thing. Wild Thing. But it was a very Elvis Presley kind of character.
Okay.
So Hawk kind of felt like, oh, hey, you're into music. The music character that I know was this guy who used to dress like Elvis Presley, and we called him Wild Thing.
Right.
And at the time, I was like, Wild Thing, that's pretty cool. I don't like the idea of me dressing up as Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
So anyway, he pretty much, he gave me these blue shorts that had Wild down one side and Thing down the other. And then this yellow, and I had a thing for muscle tops at the time, like cut off sleeves, like t-shirts with cut off sleeves.
Okay.
So I thought it'd be really cool to have like a muscle top, but then he picked like bright yellow for that, and then had like music notes on it. So so you can imagine. So like I'm the 6 foot guy. I've got bright blue pants on that's got Wild down one side, Thing down the other. I've got this bright yellow muscle top on with like, you know, black music notes on.
Okay.
And I had a bit of a thing for Jeff Jarrett at the time. Like I thought Jeff Jarrett was pretty cool. And this was when he was in WCW and wearing the yellow glasses.
The yellow glasses.
So I thought, hey, they'll go well with my yellow top. So yeah, let's just say let's just glad it's probably glad that it's on VHS sitting in my basement somewhere. And that's the only place it's ever
There's no photos?
I hope not.
Oh, man.
So you got to remember, I'm so old that this was before mobile phones.
Yeah.
So if someone actually had a photo of it, they would have actually had to take their little Kodak disposable thing wind it up, take it to Kmart and get it developed. So
man, what a develop.
So hopefully there is no photos of that.
What a develop that would be, man. So how long... So you had your first show, kind of stunk to bed, or at least you felt like it did. Was the Wild Thing a character that continued on for a couple of months after? Were you a permanent resident on the shows after that point, or were you sort of taking...
I was pretty much... Look, I'm not going to sit here and toot my own horn, but I think what happened was I got good at making other people look good. Which in our industry is
Job Squad.
It's called being a jobber. That was one thing that I just seemed to be good at, was making other guys look good. I would take all their finishes. I wouldn't, you know, half take them. I'd take them, you know, the right way and make them look good. And so so I'm pretty sure. I'm going to say probably June to probably December, I probably spent as Wild Thing.
Yep.
And then I just got to a point where I said to Pete, this is not working. I don't want to quit wrestling, but I don't enjoy this Wild Thing character.
Right.
And Pete being Pete was just like, well, what else do you got? And I said, nothing. And then it was just lucky that show. There was a guy at the time called Hillbilly Jed who did a match, and he got a bit of a arse whooping, I would say. He was in a match that he probably shouldn't have been in, and he came backstage. He was a bit sort of emotional about it. He ended up leaving the company, and so that character kind of became open. So I remember sitting with Pete in training, and I said, what's happening with Jed? And he said, oh, he's done. He's gone.
All right.
And so I said, look, I want that character. And he's like, Hillbilly Jed. And then I said, yeah, but I don't want to be called Hillbilly Jed because it sounded too much like Hillbilly Jim. And so I said, well, he's like, well, what name have you got? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, look, I grew up on a farm. And so I kind of feel like he always used to say to you, you need to find something that connects with you.
Yep.
And then just turn it up.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, I don't know. I said, but that to me seems easier to work than working this Wild Thing character that's not working.
Okay.
And at the time, their Beverly Hillbillies was on the TV.
Yep.
And so he just looked up at the TV, and I'm pretty sure the boy's name is Jethro in the Beverly Hillbillies.
Okay.
And he just looked at the TV and he went, Jethro. And I just went, yeah, works for me. And so that was it. And then he put me in some overalls and gave me a goofy farm boy hat. Yeah. I had long hair at the time, and yeah, I became the goofy old Jethro, stomp your feet, clap your hands, Cotton Eye Joe character.
Wow, so you actually came out to Cotton Eye Joe back then?
Yeah, I did. I
Wow.
did. Another one of Pete's decisions that I just went, yep. I'm just happy I got rid of the wild thing. So.
Right. So at this point now, is it still WCW Australia by now, or are you in MIW at this stage?
Yeah, it was still WCW Australia, and then they pretty much transitioned. I think that went on for a few months, and then we did the transition to the Major Impact shows. So then from there it became Major Impact Wrestling.
Because there are a couple of Major Impact shows that still reference the belts as WCW Hardcore, WCW Tag, WCW Australia.
I think it was just that transition of like, you know, look, the name WCW Australia had some, look, I'm not going to go into it because I don't know the full story, but I know there was some copyrights to those.
Because of Ted Turner stuff?
Because of the Ted Turner stuff.
Yeah.
It was also started, you know, with some other people. So there was some legal stuff there. So I think what they decided was, hey, let's branch away from that. And we were also going from a basketball stadium to actually going to Southport Sharks, where we were going to do these big shows, like where the first show we had Steve Carino and C.W. Anderson come.
Right.
So it was like, hey, let's transition over to the Major Impact shows, which then became Major Impact Australia. And then I think it was just the process of, you know, at the time, I think Dallas was the champion going into those shows. So he was still the TCW Australia champion. So...
WCW?
Hey?
The WCW champion?
Yeah. Is that what I said?
No, you said TCW.
Oh, wow. Let's not talk about that company. So I think going into that, Dallas was the WCW Australia champion.
Okay.
And so going into that big show, it's like, well, we just didn't have time to transition the belts. And I think that show...
The plates and everything.
Yeah, the plates and everything. And so from there, I won the title from Dallas that night.
Was that your first big title win?
No, it was my second.
Okay.
So I'd won the title from Dallas, and then I'm pretty sure like the belt was kind of just became the Major Impact belt from there.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah.
So that was your second one. Mm-hmm. Was it the second time you had the main tier belt, or just your second belt in general?
So that was the second time that I had the WCW Australia belt.
How long into your career was it when you won your first title?
So I would say 8 months after I debuted, I changed my character from Wild Thing to Jethro.
Wow, you stuck with it for 8 months. Okay.
8 months.
Yep.
And then pretty much the show after I debuted as Jethro, I won the title.
Wow.
So
roughly 10, 11 months.
Yeah.
Now, you're saying in your first match you didn't feel ready. Did you feel ready by this stage?
No.
Well, do you remember what the decision was as to why you were winning?
The thing was, and the reason I got it is because the Jethro character worked.
Right.
Like, I hated it, but the crowd loved it.
Right.
And the thing is, and Pete saw that. Pete saw that, like, you know, it's like when your music hits, right? Mm-hmm. Your music hits,
yeah,
and the crowd know who's coming.
Yeah.
And the thing is like with my music, I had that stomp your feet, clap your hands thing to it.
Yeah.
So pretty much as soon as, and everyone knows Cotton Eye Joe. Mm-hmm. Like it's not like a song that hardly anyone knows. Like a lot of people know that song.
Yeah.
So as soon as it hits, I would be backstage stomping my foot on the wooden floor to get the crowd into it. And Pete loved that.
Okay.
And that was the first time I learned about crowd interaction.
Yeah.
I was like, so all I've got to do is do this and the crowd will love me?
Yeah.
And so that's what worked. And Pete saw that and Pete's like, right. And at the time, Thor had just left the company.
Okay.
And so the title was vacant.
Oh, it's vacant. Okay.
Yeah. So my first title match was a coffin match.
Jeez.
Yeah. Something I'd never seen before and something I'd never done before. Mm-hmm. So it was me and the Pharaoh.
Yep.
So pretty much I took on a mummy in a in a coffin match.
Yep.
And I cheated to win, and that was how I became the champion.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that was the first time. Mm-hmm. And then fast forward the hands of time till how long was it till the second one happened at Major?
So we brought in Dallas, who is a former Auckland Warrior from New Zealand. He joined the company, and you can imagine what an Auckland Warrior looks like.
Oh yeah.
Like, it was like looking at Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
And I just remember going to training one day, and Pete said to me, he's like, Lee, I want you to work with Dallas. Actually, I'm going to stop you there. Mm. So I just remember Pete coming to me and saying, Jethro, I want you to work with Dallas. Mm. And I said, okay, cool. And I just shook his hand, had a hell of a grip on him, and, big dude. And I didn't know this, but Dallas had been training with him for quite a while.
Okay.
And so, Pete was sitting in his director's chair, and Pete said, put a headlock on him. I was like, okay. So we locked up, put a headlock on him. And then he just said out loud, he just goes, Dallas, now. And next thing I knew, I was in the air. I almost hit the roof, and I came down like in a power bomb style.
Oh.
Now, I didn't do anything to help that. Yep. It was just pretty much I had the headlock on him. Next thing I was in the air and I got power bombed. And I just remember looking up at Pete and going, and just pretty much mouthing, what the F just happened?
Yeah.
And Pete just looked at me and just went, he's strong, isn't he? And I was like, yeah. He's like, you two, next show.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And that was my first loss, was against Dallas.
Yikes.
So, yeah. And so, obviously returned the favour, a few months later.
At Major Impact 1?
Mm-hmm. I actually, and once again, cheated to win. I hit him with a slop bucket behind the referee's back.
Slop bucket?
Yeah, and actually busted his nose.
Oh.
And I, obviously this is all accident.
Yep,
and,
sure.
The after party, I pretty much had his wife yell at me for about 15 minutes for busting his nose open. Something we still laugh about to this day.
Jeez.
So, yeah, I was more scared of his wife than I actually was of Dallas.
Man, I knew of Dallas. I saw him at the reunion show, which we'll eventually get into. But I had the chance to work with him when we started a company in about 2013, 2014, up in a West End called QPW. Mm-hmm. And we did a tag match where there was a guy called Savage, and his partner was Dallas, against me, and my partner was Island Boy Sai. Mm-hmm. And at one point, Dallas got me up in the gorilla press with one hand, and he's just clearly walking around the ring.
I'm surprised he had to use his whole hand to get you up there. But anyway.
So am I. And he put me down, he brushed my shoulders off, and I remember seeing his arm wind back, and I remember thinking, just the beginning of no, and I couldn't even, in my mind, say the word no. It went to and then it just went whoosh. And I remember just hearing it was like Saving Private Ryan. I remember opening my eyes and hearing just that sort of post-grenade sound, and everyone's like, woo, 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 woo. Like everything's muffled and and I remember just army crawling my way over to Island Boy and just tagging him out going, that was ridiculous. So
I'll tell you a real funny story real quick about Dallas.
Yeah.
He wrestled Monk.
Okay.
At an IPW show. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they had a falling out before the show or not, but Dallas whipped him off and he swung for a clothesline. Mm-hmm. And he hit Monk so hard with his arm that Monk's teeth was imprinted on Dallas's like bicep.
Oh, yikes.
I have never and Monk is he's a big guy. Like he's not a small fella. And, we're talking someone, it took a lot to get off his feet, and he clotheslined him, and Monk it was like someone yelling, "Timber!" And he just went.
Was he KO'd?
They finished the match. I don't know if he was KO'd or concussed or whatever, but I just remember Dallas came backstage, and he's like, "Hey, J-Ro, look at this," and just seeing like a full set of dentures like imprinted on a guy's arm. Funniest thing I ever seen from Dallas.
That's ridiculous. That's nuts, man. Yeah, he's a big dude.
He's a beast.
So you win your second title in, what was this, 2001, 2002?
So we're getting along too. Well, Major Impact was 2003, wasn't it?
I feel like it was.
I don't know. My timeline's terrible. Do you know how many shots to the head I've had over the years? But I'm going to say that we're probably around... Major Impact would have probably been about 2003.
Okay.
I'm guessing something like that.
So you're about 3 years into your career at this point?
Yeah, probably a couple of years, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So at this point, Jethro is established for about a year and a half?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so your second title win comes and...
I held it for probably about 4 months. I think it was like Major Impact 4 or 5. I think I lost to Jackaroo. I turned on my tag partner Jackaroo, because at the time we were also the tag team champions.
Oh, okay. So you were dual champ.
Yeah, so I was a dual champ at the time. Like Pete had thought having Jethro and Jackaroo together as the Outbackers was a bit of a Bushwhackers sort of rip-off sort of thing, which the crowd loved. So because Jackaroo was over as can be.
Yep.
So I turned on him at Major Impact 2, and that was when I turned heel. Mm-hmm. So we'd been mouthing each other, but there had been no contact. And then I think it was about Major Impact 5. We finally got in the ring together, and he beat me, and that was my loss to Jackaroo.
Wow. Okay.
And then I was there. I think it was Major Impact 7. I fought BJ, and then I left the company not long after that.
Was this about 2006, 2007?
No, this is 2003.
So there was a lot of Major Impact shows.
So Major Impact was monthly.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like an annual sort of WrestleMania-esque event.
No. It was monthly. Like it was pretty much like every month. We think January. I'm going to say something like January 14th, 2003, I think was like Major Impact 1, something like that. And then it was just monthly. So pretty much.
Wow. So what drove you to the point after all these shows, after 7 Major Impact shows, you're a dual champion, you've got a pretty solidified story in the company at that point. Like it's an angle that people want to care about and invest in. What drove you at that point in 2003 after those shows to go, I'm out of here?
I think it was just the point of I'd done some stupid shit in my time, like Major Impact 2, I did a table match with Cruz. Major Impact 3, I did a 5 Stages of Hell match with Grave Tavern, probably one of my most fun matches, but just dumb stuff. Previously, leading up to those matches, I'd done, stupid bumps that, when you're young and hungry in wrestling, you kind of think you have to do big moves and to wow the fans. Like,
sure, yeah.
Where now I've kind of learnt that you wow the fans by having a character that appeals to them, not how, can you stand on the top rope and be suplexed off there. So yeah, I was just a bit burnt out. And the thing is too, like when I started, I was wrestling 4 times a week in training.
Yeah.
Like, and, I would be in there from the moment we start to the moment we finish. Like I wouldn't just get in there and do 15 minutes and sit there and talk crap. Like I'd be in there for 2 hours, like bumping and bumping. So pro wrestling is, whatever you want to, however you want to call it, fake or, entertainment or whatever that is, it takes a toll on your body. And, so I just wanted to have a break. And I felt like I'd been as high as I could at the time. So it was time to kind of take a bit of a step back. And then, so I just kind of took some time away. And so then 2004, I had the opportunity to move away to Tasmania. Okay. So I went down to there for about 8 months, 9 months, just to get away. And then I pretty much had some work opportunities to come back to the coast. So then I came back to the coast, started wrestling again, just doing some shows here and there. Mm-hmm. And then which pretty much led up to 2007, and then I moved down to Tasmania, and I was there for 11 years.
So what did you do during the time off when you said you felt a bit burnt out, you left the company? What was life like? Where did you go and what did you do during that time before coming back again?
Well, first of all, I just kind of took the time to reassess like where I was in life. Mm-hmm. 2007, I did a ladder match.
No, the first time.
Hey?
Because you said you've got burnt out in 2003?
Oh, yeah, 2004.
Yes, and then you left for a bit and then you came back.
Yeah, so 2004, I just wanted to take a break. And the problem with wrestling is you're either in or you're either out.
Yeah.
Like there's no like, oh, hey, I might do this show, but then I won't do the next two. And then, there's no part-time in wrestling in Queensland.
Yeah, it's not like any other sport, like with basketball, it's like a game a week or whatever. You're on. It was 24.
like, so, hey, we want you. And there were times that before we did the big shows, it was every week at Southport, like every Saturday night.
Yeah.
And like that, you can imagine being chokeslammed and power bombed and superplexed, like all that stuff, like every Saturday night.
Hey man, I get it. When you came back and I played the music and got that evil look, at that point we were doing those shows every week in that sweatshop. So yeah, I get it. Yeah,
so that kind of, and let's just say, like, I wasn't in bad shape, but I wasn't learning. I didn't understand about really looking after my body.
Sure.
Like working out properly and, getting massages and, recuperating your muscles. And, like, I just kind of just beat the shit out of myself and then got up next day and blah, blah, blah.
Totally hear you. Yeah.
So I was a bit burnt out that first time. Mm-hmm. And then it was nice to take that break because, like I said, you're either in or you're out.
Yep.
There's no in between.
No.
So I was out. And then I came back and then I said to Pete, I said, look, I'm just pretty happy to just not be a main draw. I just want to help out. I just want to, like, if you've got guys you want me to put over or, if you just want me to do a show here and there, I'm happy to do that. And he was pretty happy with that because obviously I've been gone for a while. There was a new, it's like, wrestling is like an engine, and we're all parts of it. And then, we get taken out, we get replaced, and then you might come back, you might not. But the wheel keeps turning.
Absolutely. How long did you take off? Do you remember?
The first time?
Mm-hmm.
Just 9 months.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so it wasn't long.
Were you establishing your life outside of wrestling at that point? Like, were you doing things... Because although wrestling played a huge part, was there other avenues that you were proceeding other than being inside the squared circle?
No, I think wrestling had taken up so much of my time.
Yeah.
Like when I took up wrestling, I stopped playing drums. Like I still played drums at home, but
it was more a hobby rather than...
It was more of a hobby. Yeah. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to go do a gig on a Saturday night.
Because you're getting that live event kick out of shows.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was just more about, I had a partner at the time and just trying to settle down a little bit.
Just do life for a bit.
Just do life, because we do, like I joked about it at the start of the interview, like we dress up in tights and play fight.
Sure.
As people call it. Mm-hmm. So, like it's, you get to a point where
it's nice to wear normal clothes for a bit.
Yeah, it's just like, I probably should grow up a little bit is what I was probably trying to think. So, and I was just kind of, like I said, I was just kind of settling down a little bit. So I just thought it's time to just have some me time.
Did you make the call or did someone drag you back in?
Oh, look.
All right, that's the end of part 1 with Diablo. I know I had to pause it at a good cliffhanger moment, but hey, tune in next week for part 2. If you haven't done so already, please hit up the Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter of the Little Man Big Conversation podcast at LMBC Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and at LMBC_podcast on Twitter. And hey, while we're at it, we're closing the episode out. Thank you all very much for over 1,000 plays. This podcast has just been going now for close to 11, on the cusp of 12 weeks. Never would have thought I got over 100. You guys have done the absolute brilliance, absolute gold medal performance. I've been liking, sharing, tweeting, hashtagging, doing all the cool stuff to get those plays up there. I appreciate it so much, and I'll catch you next week.